A couple of weeks ago, I came across this book on our bookshelf in the library. It's called The Giveaway. And when I opened it up, I looked, and it was passed on to Stone Church from the Westbury United Methodist Women when they were kind of closing down shop. But they passed on to me and to us a small collection of books. This book that I'm going to share with you this morning is called The Giveaway. And it says that it's a Christmas story. But I think it is something more than that, which is why I'm sharing it here on the second Sunday of October. The author and the illustrator, Buckley, he's of the Lakota Native Indian and the Scott descent. And the pictures that you will see in this story represent a number of images from the Native American tradition. So I share with you now this book, this story, called The Giveaway. There was a grove of trees where the forest grew thick. The trees had stood there for as long as anyone could remember. Their roots intertwined so that nothing could affect one without affecting them all. They were known to the inhabitants of the forest, the four legs and those who fly, as the old ones. In the middle of the old ones stood the oldest of them all, taller and broader than the others. If one stood beneath it, one could not see where its crown touched Father's sky, and smaller trees grew around its roots in the safety of its vastness. It was called the Ancient One, for it had known the Creator longest of all. It was to this grove that the creatures of the forest and the plains, the four-leggeds and those who fly, gathered for counsel. Each one sent one speaker, the oldest and the wisest of its kind. Snow fell thick on familiar paths, and each arrived in silence, waiting with the patience of those who have seen much. When the circle was complete, they stood listening to their hearts. "They've lost their way," Whooping Crane said. "There's no pattern to their journey." Snow Goose nodded in agreement. "They've lost their purpose," Deer Mouse said softly. "They do not gather seeds. They don't know who they are." Tatanka, the bull buffalo, dropped his head low. He said, "They take more than they need and they give nothing back. They do not give away." The eagle began, "They do not see long distance. They keep more than they can eat while some are hungry. They no longer know that they're connected." "They do not know that they're a beautiful," Fox said sadly, her white coat blending in with the snow. "They decorate themselves with stone and they hide their spirits." Old Beaver pondered, "They think that power is what they can hold on to. They say, 'This is mine,' and build lodges too large so that they themselves will appear big." "They must make others small so that they will look big," Bear's deep voice answered. "In the end, they must destroy themselves or others. They've lost their names. They don't know who they are." Now, Grandmother Turtle, who was the last to arrive, made her way slowly to the center of the council. She lifted her head so she could see all who gathered beneath the old ones. Her voice was barely audible. We must give away ourselves to them. We must speak to them in soft voices. We must remind them of who they are." And she paused, and lowering her head into her shell, and then suddenly she lifted her head as high as her neck will allow, and she said, "I will give them my shell," she said with certainty. "I will come with no protection, and they can use my shell to adorn themselves." Around the circle, the council was silent. The wind did not blow through the trees. Not a single branch on the old ones fluttered. The forest was still as Grandmother Turtle began her walk back to the empty spot in the circle. "Ah, I will teach them the patterns of life," Whooping Crane said slowly. "Snow Goose and I will remind them of the seasons. I will teach them to gather seeds so that no one need to be hungry," Deer Mouse began. "I will give them what I stored." Eagle searched the night sky and without lowering her head said, I will give them my feathers. Perhaps if I cannot fly, they will not feel small. Tatanka, the bull buffalo, stood with his legs squarely on the earth. I will give them my flesh to sustain them and my skin to warm them. I will give myself away. And each council member in turn rose to speak of the gift, that most costly part of themselves that each of them would give away. And when the circle was complete, a new voice was heard. In the shadow of the Ancient One stood the Creator. Oh, children, the Creator began softly. You will give yourselves away, but they will not know that. They will see what I've taken, and they will think that they have made themselves larger. For a moment, the Creator paused. It is I who must give myself away. I must give away my protection and come vulnerable to their lodges. I must choose to become small so that they choose to know me large. I must give away my name so that they might know their names. And the Ancient One, the tree, stood silent. The sound of his voice had not been heard in many winters. Creator, how can this be? How can this great mystery of you become small? The Creator stood beneath the Ancient One. The shadow of the great tree became light, and the grove of the old ones became full of the presence of the Creator. A baby will be born. He will be son of the great mystery. He will be born not where the two-leggeds are gathered, but among the four-leggeds and those who fly. He will bring light into confusion. He will bring hope into despair. He will bring love, and his name will be great. The Ancient One began to tremble, and those who fly left its old branches. The grove of the old ones moved in its quake. Creator, what can I, whose name speaks only of my age, give away to this great mystery who will become a baby? What can I do from my grove here in the forest? The Creator turned toward the Ancient One. The voice of the Creator was low. You will be his support. You will be his place of rest. You will hold his body. You will hold him up in the beginning and in the end. And the Ancient One wept, partly for joy and partly for sorrow. The tree's gift was to be both the baby's Jesus cradle, manger, and also the cross. You can see why I thought this was a little bit more than a Christmas story. That the one who is great became small for all of us. Amen.